Bethel have a school called the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, don't they? What sort of things are they teaching people there?
Well, the reason people go to Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry is basically to learn to work miracles. And this Bethel's own students will refer to the school fondly as the Christian Hogwarts, like Hogwarts in the Harry Potter books and films. And so they go there to become activated in miraculous gifts. And the type of exercises that have been promoted by the school or just Bethel in general. So this is an example of a prophetic activation exercise. What they'll do is they'll take two students and have them stand back to back, and they won't know who the other student is, but they'll blindfold them and then say the first thing that comes to mind is a prophetic word for the person standing behind them. And so that's the type of prophetic activation exercise that has been promoted by the school. And I actually witnessed something like that when I visited Bethel Church, and I went to their adult Sunday school class, their fire starters class. They were teaching people how to prophesy that day, or activating people in the prophetic. And so they called 4 volunteers to come to the front of the room. These were people who had never prophesied before, but they wanted to learn how. And they would have the volunteers come to the front of the room one at a time, pick somebody in the room they didn't know, and just say whatever they were told to say, whatever popped into their head without filtering it as a prophetic word for the person in the audience, and not to worry if they made mistakes. They were just learning. It was okay. And so these prophetic activation exercises will generally involve encouraging people to say whatever pops into their head as a prophetic word for someone else, and just to keep practicing. And that's how they do it.
Yeah, and it's noteworthy not only that there are parallels between the way that they train students to prophesy and perform miracles, there are parallels between their practices and New Age practices, as we describe in the book. But they're not taught in Scripture. These practices, these learning exercises, they're all borrowed either from the entertainment industry or from the New Age movement, but you don't see them taught in Scripture. You don't see even the notion of activation in the miraculous taught in Scripture. And so this is a very distinctive thing, you should always ask the question, what is the biblical source for the teaching and for the practice that we're seeing manifest here? And if there isn't one, then you have to ask, well, what authority does it have? How do we know that it's legitimate? How do we know that it's from God? And then if we find that these so-called prophets are not only giving revelations of a new sort, but also purporting that they have received special insight into the teaching of Scripture, where they know things that other people don't, not because of the way they've studied Scripture using responsible Bible study practices, but because the Spirit of God blows on the text and on the words while they are reading them, and they receive special revelatory illumination into the meaning of the text. And it's oftentimes far removed from what the text actually teaches. And so my view is that if a so-called prophet is playing fast and loose with his interpretation of Scripture, and he gets that wrong, and his teachings from Scripture are false, then we shouldn't be trusting him to be a prophetic speaker on God's behalf when he has new revelations to share with the world.